If you ever find yourself in the mood to hoist a pint to the father of our country, President George Washington, then you gotta come here to the Comfort Inns and Suites in Plattsburgh, New York. Why? Because here at their brew pub is a fellow who makes the same kind of recipe George Washington made way back when. It's a great story and a great beer. Come on in, I'll tell you all about it. Legends is a real brew pub. They do 10 of their own beers and ales here. Open 7 days a week, afternoons and evenings. Great place to come after work and have a cold one. Here is the brewmeister himself, Jay Stoyanoff.
How you doing, Derek?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I am so inspired that you did some research to find the recipe that was created by George Washington.
Absolutely, and Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson too?
Yep, they both had breweries on their plantations at Monticello and in Mount Vernon. And I tried to take some of the things from their recipes and put it into a modern day recipe so that we could all enjoy it today.
Are these the ingredients in front of us?
Yeah, here we've got water. Plattsburgh's got a great water source, great for brewing.
Okay.
So of course, that's the majority of beer there.
Yeah.
And then we've got malted barley here.
Look at that. Oh, it smells wonderful.
Yeah, that's a caramelized barley. So that's kind of what gives it a more orange color and a sweetness.
And you try to buy locally whenever you can.
Yeah, absolutely. We source all of our stuff from right in upstate New York and Champlain.
Hops, look at that.
Good old hops beauty. It's the spice of beer. It's what creates the bitterness to balance the sweetness of our ales.
Oh, it smells great. And finally,
And then of course the living part of beer.
the living part of
This
it.
is an actively fermenting yeast.
Look at that. I can see it bubbling away from here. It's actually growing.
It is. It's an amazing little thing. Brewers for years didn't understand its role in making beer,
Yeah.
but they just knew how to use it. Now we understand exactly what it's all about, and we can really manipulate it to make the beers that we like.
Now, Plucky Rooster has got the North Country just enamored by the taste. And you do 9 others, and they're all very popular as well.
Yes.
But we're here to learn the story of Plucky Rooster, and it's a great name. We'll get to that in a little bit. But we're here in the pub. Do you make the beer?
Yep, we make it right here.
And where's that?
The brewery's right over here.
Lead on.
Okay. So this is the brewery.
Now tell me what I'm looking at here. I got a big pipe overhead.
Yep, that's our grain auger right there.
So the grain comes into the room.
Yep.
And goes into this big kettle over here.
Yep, that's called our mash tun.
And it's a TUN. That's
TUN.
That's an old name
It's exactly.
for making the mash.
Absolutely. So the water and the grain come together in that vessel, and they create the mash.
Do you stir it or anything?
No,
it just sits there.
We let it fall so that all the air that's in the grain stays there, so that the mash bed will float. That helps the process.
Okay.
And then we let it sit for 70 minutes so that the carbohydrates and the starches can be turned into simple sugars that the yeast can ferment with.
So after 70 minutes, what happens?
So after 70 minutes, we're ready to separate the grain from the sugar water. So we take the grain and we take the sugar water and we pump it over here to our kettle.
Leaving the grain behind.
Leaving the grain behind.
Goes in this big kettle here. This looks like something you can fire up.
Absolutely. This is our heat source here. So this is a direct fire kettle. And this is where we boil the sugar water, which we boil for 70 minutes, adding hops incrementally to get the flavor profile we're looking for.
So how long do you boil it?
We boil it for 70 minutes, adding hops incrementally.
And then what happens?
And then we cool it down using this heat exchanger right here. That instantly cools the sugar water from 212 degrees down to 68.
And then it's on to magic time, right?
That's right. Then we pump it over here into the fermenters, which has got an actively fermenting yeast waiting for it. And like you said, that's where the magic begins.
And how long does it stay in here?
It stays in there for 7 days of fermentation, and then a minimum of 7 days cold condition is what it's called.
Okay, but if you want a nice cold beer at the bar, it's a beer that's never seen a keg and never seen a bottle.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't come out of these tanks, does it?
No. From here, we've got to finish carbonating it, and then we send it upstairs to our serving vessels that eventually lead right to the taps.
So we got one more step to take a look at here.
One more.
Before we get into the sampling.
Absolutely.
Well, lead on.
All right.
Working up a powerful thirst here. Hey, I got one more question here.
Sure.
Where do you get the CO2? How does that get introduced into the beer?
Well,
The bubbles.
The bubbles. The majority of it is actually formed naturally. I capture it at the end of fermentation, but then just to finish it off, I use locally sourced, gas.
And all that's done up there,
All up there,
and then whoosh, right into your pint glass at the bar.
down to the taps.
We're getting closer and closer. I'm dying to have a sample here, but first of all, we mentioned it earlier. Tell everybody where you got the name Plucky Rooster. Was there such a creature?
There was. It's a great story. It's one of the first battles of the War of 1812. Happened right here in Plattsburgh in Cumberland Head. It was a naval battle. The British ship fired on the American ship, the U.S. Saratoga, and during the skirmish, a rooster gets blown out of its cage
On the American
on
ship.
the American side, crawls out to the end of one of the cannons and starts crowing defiantly at the British. Now this supposedly fires up the troops, and they go on to win that battle, and then later go on to win the war.
So the Americans get inspired by a very plucky rooster.
Absolutely.
Great. That's a great story. It's got to be true. It's so wacky.
It's got to be.
And it's a great name for an ale.
Thank you.
I'm dying of thirst.
Let's get some.
Okay. Jay, I'm counting 10 taps here. These are all yours.
Yep, all ours.
They're all coming down from the cold room up there.
Yep.
I'm ready for a plucky rooster.
All right, let's have one.
All right, go ahead.
All right.
Little drum roll here. Put a good head on. Oh, this man knows how to pour beer. All right, you gonna join me?
I will.
Look at this. Does this look good? Ooh. Good job, man. Here's
Thank you much.
here's looking up your old rooster.
All right.
Boy, that's good. That is very good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, that's really good.